Hey everyone, it's Steve from the garden. In this week's video is just kind of a mishmash of different things I was doing during the week. And we've been getting some really smoky skies here in the Chicago area. I'll show you a picture of what the sun looked like a few days ago. That day it was supposed to be a clear blue sky, and you can see it doesn't look clear at all. And other things that are going on, the cherries on my cherry tree are now fully ripe. Now this is a sour cherry, and I did pick a bunch of them and made them into a cherry cobbler a few days ago. Anyways, let's get started with this week's video. For the lettuce planting I'm going to do like a high density lettuce planting. And before I go inside to actually put the seeds directly into the soil, I'm going to go ahead and do a mix of all the seeds I want to grow into a dish. You know, they'll all be mixed together, and then when I go to harvest them and with a cut and come again type harvest, they'll all be mixed together, and you'll have like this hopefully great mix of lettuces you can just cut and put right in your salad. So I'm going to have quite a variety of different lettuces I'm going to use, and because I have so many, I'm not going to use a lot of seeds for each one. I'm just going to let some fall in there. That one was a red romaine, and I have Little Gem Butterhead, some Freckles romaine lettuce, some Grand Rapids leaf, which has kind of a frilly leaf on the outside, some Ruby red leaf, which is also just a little bit frilly, some magenta, myrrh, some Coastal Star romaine, some Butterhead lettuce, which is this variety called Adrena, which these are pelleted seeds. You can see these are quite a bit bigger. And some iceberg. You can see I got quite a variety here, and I'm just, like I said, mixing them up. Won't know what we get until they grow up. So let's take these outside and get them in the ground. You can see in this area where I want to put the lettuce, I've got these old lettuces that are going to seed. So the first thing I need to do is cut these out. I'm just going to cut them right at or just below the ground level. These stems are quite thick. I ended up using the loppers over there to cut through those stems because they're so thick, and that made quick work of them. Now that those lettuces are out of the way, you can also get a good look at my peas. I've been getting a lot of good harvests of snow peas out of there. But what we're working on today is that lettuce. So I already got my drip irrigation laid out from before. So now I'm going to just create a furrow right next to that drip tape to lay the seeds. I'm just going to use my hand to create the furrow. You can see down below the surface that there's plenty of moisture down there from the drip tape running on a schedule. And so with that done, I'll just kind of sprinkle the seeds in the furrow. They'll have a pretty close spacing, but they'll be okay. The plants will kind of just compete with themselves, and that should also help reduce the likelihood of them bolting, I think. Or at least they won't bolt quite as fast because they'll have trouble reaching full size. And with me doing like a cut and coming again type harvest, it should also help keep them manageable in terms of size. With the seeds in place, I can just kind of cover these seeds up with the soil from the top. And tomorrow's the watering day, so they'll just automatically get watered starting tomorrow. In the meantime, I think there's plenty of moisture already in the ground to kind of get them started. All the lettuces I pulled out, I'll throw into the compost bin. Tomatoes are really growing fast, and now my second stem, which is one of these suckers, for my dual stemming these tomatoes, is ready to get tied up, and I need to do some more maintenance cutting off the new suckers. There we go. We got single stem, the original stem here. I clipped the second stem over here on the side, and then as it grows out a little bit more, I'll have it trained to go up this bar right here. The red stage next to the tomatoes are forming flowers, so that helps bring in pollinators. And this is the summer pick tomatoes. And I have my first tomatoes on this plant forming. And our little tiny one right there. The Torrangina, I harvested my first tomatoes a couple days ago on this. You can see I got more that are coming along. My first Alma paprikas are getting ripe where I can start picking those. I also managed to get this path cleaned up pulled all the weeds out. And my first Santa Fe peppers are ripening too. All the garlic has now produced scapes, and I cut them off. And you can see the earliest scape forming varieties are now beginning to die back a little bit. So I'm guessing this variety, which is the Music, I might be able to harvest somewhere around July 4th. And then each of the other varieties will be like a week after. Onions are continuing to size up. I mean, this one right here and that one, those are both looking quite good for size. The Pattersons are running a little bit behind, but that's normal. They do mature slightly later than the candy onions do. As the strawberries have been fizzling out, now my raspberries are coming online as far as harvest goes. And you can see here, I have a lot of raspberries that are in the process of growing out and ripening. I also have my first heads of broccoli forming up. So I'm guessing these will be ready in the next, week or two. My Napa cabbage down there is starting to form a head. And same with this one. My first planting of sweet corn is also starting to grow out the tassels. So another week, I'm guessing, the tassels will be at full height. And I'll have to start hand pollinating them. And over here, my second planting is just kind of getting to that in-between stage where it's starting to take off. And then the last planting of corn is just in the very beginning stage of growing out. Next up, we're taking a look at the sweet potatoes. You can see they're starting to grow out. But I found something interesting in that Brian Siebert had his worm castings tested. And the potassium level on those worm castings was real high. So I thought, why don't we do a little experiment and add some of that worm castings, my own worm castings, into these pots to see if they help the sweet potatoes at all. Now, if you remember, we put some pieces of banana in these two buckets. And that was right in the center. And you can't see it through the camera, but I'm not really seeing those bananas in there. But I'm going to go ahead and add kind of a small handful of worm castings into the center. We'll just kind of bury that back in, along with any worms that happen to be in those castings. Now, I took these castings directly from my worm bin. I didn't try to separate out the worms or anything. They're adding some worms to this isn't going to hurt anything. If anything, it'll help. So I'm going to do the same for this bucket, which did not get a banana. And again, I'm just going to add kind of a small handful of the castings into the center, along with the worms, and bury that in there. And I think I'll do the same with this bucket over here. This one had a banana. I'm not going to do anything with that one. And we'll see if banana and worm castings versus banana by itself makes any difference. I also harvested a bunch of my raspberries, and particularly these black raspberries. Now the spot where these grow, I hadn't been over there in several days, and I went over there today and it was just loaded up. So I just went and picked a whole bunch of them to fill this bowl. Also got some more of these Torringina cherry tomatoes. You can see it now, it's a little bit clearer out in the sky. We had some rain come through and it washed some of that smoke out of the sky, at least temporarily. So that's a nice improvement. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed, got something out of this, and we'll see you on the next one.